So today I brought the ignition key with me, and one of the things I noticed is that when the steering column is locked, it's not pointing exactly straight ahead. It's turned a little bit to the left. So what I may do as I try to get this thing in here is put it in, then unlock the steering wheel before I put it into the splines. But first we got to get it past the duct, past the brake pedal, which is easier to do if you tilt it upwards, the plate that's on the end of the shaft. Okay, and then today I'm going to try something a little different. Yesterday, or the day before, when I hooked this up, I hooked these two first. I am going to try to hook the big long connector first. Might be a little bit easier to do that way because it's on the bottom. Don't quite have enough light in here to see it exactly. That looks like it's lined up. See if I can push it on right. Try to pull it off. Make sure it's hooked good. Turn that a little bit so I can see it a little better. Looks like it's on. Okay, and then as we did the other day, the white connector has to go on first because it's got a tab that goes underneath the black connector. It kind of helps hold it in. The black connector pinches it all down. And there's a click. So looks like all the connectors are in. I've got it through the firewall, at least part way. I don't know if the alignment or the locking pin for the shifter is through. That's the toughest thing to get through here. Prop this up with my box that I had here yesterday. See how we're doing on the getting it all the way through the firewall. That's mostly a feel for it. We are not through. It's close to coming through. I think the end of the steering column's got to go to the left a little bit to hold that bracket. I may have to go under the car and pry that through like I did the other day. From up here you can't see much. From underneath you can lift up on that shaft a little bit and pull it forward. I've got that tab right in the, it's right in alignment with the firewall. So now I have to line up the splines and see if I can shove it in. Just a matter of getting them lined up till it pops in. Okay, I've got that lever that is there to shift to lock the shifter. through the firewall. Oh, wait. Is that in? I need to take the light. If it's not in there, I have a problem because the shaft's too short. Good news, it is in. Okay. Now I need to see if I can get the bolts started that hold the shaft up inside. When I was looking at this, better make sure it's where I'm showing you is in the frame of the camera. Let me zoom in on it. I was looking at the shaft right there, and it looked like it should go in further, but when you lift the column, you can see that it's all the way in, because it lines up with the piece on the dash. So now it should be a matter of, let's see if we can start these bolts that hold the shaft up. Put the steering column up. Where are they? I think I have to lift the steering wheel up because the bolt won't reach. So there. I need something higher to hold that up for me, because it's hard to do this screwing it in left-handed. And an awkward position to hold it up left-handed and screw it in right-handed. Okay, I was able to get the other side started. Let's see if we can get this side started now. Okay, it's off. I hope that there's enough adjustment in the tie rod ends to straighten the steering wheel after this is done, or I'll have to drop it out again to get it straight, or take the steering wheel off. I believe that was a 5/8 nut there. It may be a 9/16. Gonna leave my extension on here because I believe it'll give me a better swing with the wrench. I do have to go underneath and put the set screw in that locks the shaft to this drag joint, but as I said before, there's so little room there, there's no way it could fall out. Just isn't room for it to move. Okay. I probably shouldn't have tightened those all the way. I need to go under and put that plate on that locks it to the firewall. So I am going to loosen those a bit. Because as I tighten that plate in, it might need room to move inward. So we're back on the driver's side of the car. There's a couple things I want to show you, and I'm sure I can't video it because I'll be in the way while I'm doing it anyways, but this is where the vintage air duct I knocked off yesterday has to be reattached. So I'll be working on that, I'm quite sure, for a while, but the bolts that hold the steering column up I'm going to loosen so that it can shift forward if necessary. When I tighten that bracket underneath, pull it snug to the firewall. These mounts on the steering column, those are big long slots, so it's got about an inch of travel that it can do once you got the bolt in there. So that won't be a problem. I'm just loosening these up so that there's enough play in there to move it. And I'm not going to video the whole process of trying to reconnect that there. That's got some play in it, so I can move it. I'm not going to video the entire process of hooking up that air conditioning vent because that was a bear to do when I had it out in my hand. But now that I've got the lift up maybe 2.5, 3 feet so that I can reach it easier, and hopefully it won't take forever to do that. But I'm pretty sure it's not going to be fun. So just for grins, a few days ago I was watching a video of a guy installing a vintage air system on a 71 Corvette, and he was complaining that the vintage air vent was lower than the original, which I still don't understand why vintage air didn't use the originals, or at least give you this same vent new so that you could put a new one in. But at any rate, he was replacing this with the original air vent, and I don't want to do that because he didn't have a correct fit for the flex hose. He was putting it inside the original vent and then taping it up with duct tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to use zip ties to tie that up. There is a hole in the steering column that looks like it will work for that. Doesn't have any other purpose. Other than that, I don't know why it's there. But I am going to use a couple of them because one's not long enough to reach around that and see if I can pull that up, and I'll show you the results because I'm sure you won't see anything while I'm in there working. Okay, there, it's up as far as it can go for now, but remember I'm going to go under the car and put that bracket on, bolts the to the flange on the steering column. That may pull the steering column in a little bit, which would move this mounting point right here. That may loosen it up and I may have to readjust it, so I haven't cut this off yet. But for now, that looks like it's going to be out of the way of my feet when I use the brake pedal. And that's a good thing. Before I go under the car to unlock that bracket, I'm going to put the key in the ignition and unlock it. The reason I need to unlock it is not so much so that I can turn the wheel, because I really won't be able to do that. The weight of the car is sitting on the front wheels, but that little tab for the that locks the gear shift lever, I need to be able to move that so that I can get this second bolt in on this bracket that pulls it in. Now that is a carriage bolt, and there's a square hole in the bracket to keep it from turning, but working by myself, I'm going to have a hard time with that. So I'm going to resort to another trick, I hope. At least I'm going to try it. I've got some, it's actually for hanging posters and such, that is, it's like a gummy substance. I'm just going to put it around the head of this bolt when I shove it into the bracket with the square lined up with the hole so that it can't spin, and hopefully that will hold it well enough that I can get the nut on it and then tighten it in with a wrench. And I will be tightening this one, which is toward the center of the car, before I tighten the one that is on the outside of the car, because that's fixed to the bracket. And if I tighten that guy first, I could make it harder for me to keep this one in that square hole. So that's my plan. I'm going to go get the stuff I'm going to use and show it to you. Okay, so there it is, Elmer's Tack removable adhesive putty. I don't need this to work very well because it's just got to hold for a couple seconds while I get it in there and get the nut started, but the instructions say to just rip a piece off. Oops. And knead it till it's soft and pliable, and I'm a little bit surprised that this is soft and pliable because this was from when my kids were still at home, and they're in their 40s, mid 40s. So it's been around for a number of years, but basically what I'm going to do is just put it around that head of that carriage bolt so that when I stick it through, cram it in there, it'll stay. So all I need to do is hold it until I get some pressure on the caused by the nut threading onto the bolt, and that will be pulling it in. So I'm getting it down off of the square part so that I can find the square part when I get it in there. And some of the tricks you have to come up with when you work alone. I'll shut the camera off and raise the car. So when I get under here, it turns out that I am not all that happy with the engagement of the splines on that into the rag joint. So I am going to have to pry that in and make sure it goes in a good amount. I'll try to run the recorder, but I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to leave it on. It is lined up because if I turn the steering gear a little, the shaft turns with it. So I know that's good. But I just have to get that steering column out some more. I might have to put the car down and make sure there's nothing behind it, behind the plate that goes up against the firewall up there, because that would be a problem. Thought I was doing good here. There's not much to grip on there to pry. I know that it went in further than that the other day. I'm gonna have to get this camera out of my way. I can't reach over the tripod and work. So I went inside and I checked, and there is nothing blocking it from moving in further. It doesn't have anything behind it except there is a fiber pad that's a liner to the firewall that probably can compress a little bit. But I took the set screw out and I can see for certain that the splines are engaged past the set screw, so I can lock it in place. So I'm gonna put that bracket on. Hopefully it will pull it in a little bit more, but if not, I know that I'm past the set screw and I can lock it in place. So I was doing a lot of talking and I don't know when I forgot to turn the camera on because it timed out. But I'm going to go quickly over what I found out. Number one, I could not get the column to move forward any further. It is up against the firewall. I'm trying to turn the light on here. That's why the camera is shaking so much. But what I did do, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, I had a good view before, but I don't know if I was recording it. I took the set screw out of that joint, and I can see that the set screw will fully engage the shaft, so I know I can lock it in there. So if it doesn't come forward anymore when I tighten this plate, which I think I've got one side through, I'm going to put the camera down and try to get the bolt through this hole, and then I'll have to lower the car and put the nuts on the other side. But if that pulls the shaft forward a little bit more, I'll be happy, but if not, I'll be just satisfied. Okay, so there's the plate. I've got both screws through the firewall and through the bracket, I believe, so I'm going to be going inside to tighten those. And if you zoom in on that one really close, you can see that soft stickum stuff on the bolt that I got it smashed into there. I'll tighten that one first. The other thing I may or may not have mentioned is I noticed whenever I was putting this on, this is where the cable would go to lock the transmission. I don't see a provision on the transmission to do that, so I'm gonna have to do some research. So I'm going under the dashboard with the camera, so you can see the brake pedal there and some of the vacuum lines that are coming down. Trying to get you a shot of, there's the one bolt, that is the one that's the carriage bolt, the one on the right. The one on the left is the one that's attached to the bracket underneath there. So I'm gonna have to lower the car just a little bit more because I can't quite reach that. The door is in the way. If the door was off, I could reach it easily, but then I'm gonna try to get my power ratchet under there to tighten it. So what I decided to show you is how I had to position my body to get in there and get the nut on. I've got the one towards the center of the car, the one with the carriage bolt head in. The only way I could reach it was to scoot in this way, and then my arm was long enough to reach the bolts. So I am going to try to put the power ratchet on it. Hopefully it can get it on it. If not, I'll go manual. Okay, that's the far one. This is the long power ratchet. The short one would be better. So sometimes the long one is easier to use, sometimes the short one would be better. So I'm going to finish tightening those manually, and I will retighten these two bolts that hold on the steering column, and then I'll go under, put some thread locker on the set screw and tighten that as tight as I can get it, and then I'll tighten it down with the locking nut, and I will retighten the 3 bolts on the steering gear that I loosened to give me some play to line up that shaft. So there's a bit of work to be done due to the difficulty in getting the camera into those positions. I'm not going to video any of it. You saw me taking the bolts loose. You saw where the set screw goes. You saw where the steering column is bolted up. So it's all stuff that you've seen. If you have any doubt about it, you can go back in the video and see where they're located, or go to the video prior to this where I tried to put it in and I left the shaft too long. And that will have the loosening of the steering gear from the frame. So that'll show you where those are if you need to look at that. So I'm saying this as much for me as I am for you, because when I review the video, I'll know that I took care of everything. I tightened the 2 bolts under there. I tightened the 2 that hold the steering column up here. And I'm getting ready to put on the trim piece that covers all of that. I'm probably in the way here. I'm going to shut the camera off for a second. I've got to get a screw out of one of those tabs that holds that cover trim piece on. So 3 screws hold it on. 2 are longer. They're these 2. The one that goes into the bottom of the steering column is a little bit shorter. These have to also go through this bracket in here that holds the there's vacuum lines for the headlight override. So you got to make sure that losing track of where I am. You got to make sure that that is bolted to the bottom of this. So I'm going to insert these screws through there first, and then I'm going to start one side then the other. Hopefully I won't be in the way the entire time. hoping that's grabbing, and it's not. Have to hold the back of that little tab. It's not in there very well. Let's try getting that started without worrying about whether the other screw is in place or not at this point. Once I get a few threads into that, then I can line up the other. As it turns out, this tab is already loosened like the other one on the other side is. So I'm going to have to shove that behind. This one in here. Get that started into that tab. Might have that lined up. Let's see if we can get a few threads started. Feels like it's started. No, it's not. That's why it's not going in. Still not lined up. I think this is going to take a while. This might be a case where I shut the camera off to save your time. Biggest thing with this is to be careful you don't knock the vacuum lines off of that override switch, because I'm not sure whether that would be in constant override mode. You'd probably have a vacuum leak, probably what it would be. That wouldn't be good. Okay, time to shut the camera off because this is taking too long. So there's the trim piece installed. Best I can tell you for how to get that in. Both of my tabs were broken off and they're basically just sandwiched behind the dashboard here where they were supposed to be. And the best advice I can give you is start with this side first because there's more in your way here. I was able to put that tab on and slide it in with all this attached, and then screwed this screw in. That got this relatively stable, and I was able to put the other tab in from the other side. There's much more room to get in up under here where you can get that tab behind the dashboard. But I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes maybe was spent doing that. It's not perfect, but it's gonna have to do for now at least. Now to go under the car and finish tightening everything under there. Okay, so I'm under the car. I have tightened the 3 bolts holding the steering gear on. I did put Loctite on the set screw. I tightened down the holding locking nut. This did go in a little bit further when I tightened that bracket, so I'm comfortable with it. And up on the bracket itself, just to show you, you can see the orange putty I used to hold that bolt in got squeezed out whenever I tightened it. So it did hold it in and made it so that it would not turn in the in that bracket for the carriage bolt. Now, while I'm under here, there's a couple things I can do. If I can see where my camera's aiming, there is my oil pressure sending unit, and there's a wire here that goes onto it. Where'd it go? Can't see it anymore. There it is. The other thing that I noticed that I can do, well, not so much under the car, but there is a ground strap that I believe goes to the dashboard, and there's a place to connect it over here. I'll do that from the outside of the car, but I'm just showing it for now. So that's all there is to do under here for now on the job of putting in the steering column, and just a couple of little connections I can make. There's that ground strap. There's a 3/8" screw, self-tapping type that goes in through it, and then it can go into the frame here. Can't see the hole in the frame. I try to hold the camera in my left hand, but I'm sure that would be very
unstable. It's unstable enough in my right hand. So we're going to tighten down that ground strap so that we don't forget it before we put the rocker panels on. And I'm going to end this right now. That's it for the steering column job. I'm going to finish tightening that screw when I can reach it better with both hands. And I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for watching.